Tatari, fatafat. Okay, so today we are doing board session 2 and we will talk about few things as we have discussed. The most important thing we are talking about in board is the frame. Now the frame, you can do it in two ways. Not two ways, more than two ways, but what I can say is before you actually shoot, you can have the storyboard. This is giving you a visual idea of what you are going to shoot on paper. If you want to do it digitally, you can do that digitally. Some people, if you consider this as one particular frame, the way you want to capture, you can do with a lot of details, characters, landscape, whatever you want to put characters in the landscape and the entire scene, whatever it is depicting. That you can do sometimes, you are doing a lot of detailed sketches, sometimes you are doing like painting, sometimes you are doing like like minute storyboarding, like a comic storyboarding you do. So different people will have their different style, but what it will give you before the shoot, it will give you the visual idea. You want to capture it in that way, you want to tell the story in that way, so the storyboard is helping you to do that. Now when you take the camera, then you can actually take the camera and you can capture the frame. Now this frame, if you talk about a static frame, this is the composition you are doing. If you are going for movement, you are marking the positions. If you are going for zoom, you are marking the positions, the lens, focal length, from what to what you are going and what you expect to achieve in terms of the shot, in terms of what you want to capture in the frame. For example, suppose this is the thing you have, and when you are doing the zoom, in the end you are having this. So through zoom you can achieve that. And if you want to achieve that through a jimmy jib, if you want to achieve that through a crane, then the requirement will be different, but you can still have storyboarding and you can mention in the storyboarding how you are going to achieve that. Suppose you have a crane out here, you won't show the crane, but some person is there, a tiny little person, and there is a big landscape and a lot of things, maybe buildings and people, everything is there, and you are doing it from the top. So you are using crane, you are using jimmy jib according to the requirement, and you are capturing through in the camera. So these things you can put it in the storyboard. Then when you are actually going through the shooting process, you are using the camera, you are using the equipments, you are using the movements, and what you are going to achieve is the way you want to tell the story. But the director knows, the cinematographer knows, and they are doing a lot of research. They are constantly thinking about it, how they are going to achieve these things. And then I mentioned one thing, that is the previs. Before you actually shoot, you can use some software, you can use animation, you can use digital technologies, to give you an idea where you are having, like not detailed three-dimensional characters, but somehow, three-dimensional characters. Sometimes people are using 2D as well. So you are using animated characters to give you an idea of what you are going to capture in the movie using your software, using your animation, so that once you have the idea of what you are going to shoot, the visual idea, you can play with the experimentation, you can play with the techniques, you can play with the shot design, you can play with a lot of things in the storyboard, in the previews, so that finally when you go to the camera, you are choosing the best parts. If you want to still add something to it, you are capturing those things, because as I mentioned, budget, schedule, and you are using time accordingly, because you have stipulated time, and accordingly you are using your time. So efficient resource use and the way you want to manage those resources. So before you actually go through principal photography, or you actually go through the shoot, you are doing a lot of work. So storyboard is a lot of work. You cannot ignore that. You cannot like take it lightly. Because if you are a person who is very much dependent on storyboards, then this is something where you actually creating the movie before actually shooting it. So sometimes people will create comic boards like a storyboard, and they can sell it to the audience as well, after the movie as a as a product. So it can be that detailed, and you will enjoy thoroughly how it was made, how people worked through it in a detailed manner. And obviously when you have shot the footage, you have the cameras, and you are having the dailies, you are having the entire film shot, then obviously you are seeing it on screen. But previews will help the team to play with a lot of ideas and to give you more scope for experimentation, and you can test things out whether it will work or not. And if I talk about costume design, because this is what you are going to capture. But what are you going to capture? What are you going to capture? You are going to capture something. What is that something? You can capture the close-up face of an actor, which is showing a lot of emotions. An actor in a setting which is telling you something about the place, and you can show it in different ways, through movement, through a static frame, and through different ways. So as I mentioned, you can tell the actor in this way. You can depict the actor in this way. Now, if you are doing costume design, then also the fashion designer or the costume designer will do minute sketches. So this dresses will give you an idea of the attire, what the person is, personality and choices and preferences, personality and the character, more about the character. So if the same person is wearing something else, maybe a short, that is giving you a different idea. Now the same person is wearing something ethnic, that is giving you some idea. So depending on the character, now maybe it is epic, maybe it is set in a specific time, so you are doing the costume design accordingly. So these things, how you do that. So if you are going for a lady also, you can do that. How you are going to do, is it a modern girl, so wearing skirts, or you want to give a sari, you can give a sari. So things are changing, how you are doing costume design. Now you can do detailed sketches when you go for that, and what you are going to capture when you are using these costumes, and how you are using these costumes, the face and the expression, gestures, physicality of acting. So all these things in a particular frame, these things are giving you something regarding the story. Not only that, when you talk about art direction, for example, one person is sitting here, and as I mentioned, here you have the foreground, midground, background, so something is happening there. So when you are capturing the entire thing. And the rules of composition. When you want to capture something, this is there, and you have traversed the space. So it is giving you something that you have to traverse this space. So there is that longing, there is that thing that person will go through that space. So these are the things we do, basic composition rules. But designing depth, if I talk about designing depth, we can do it in different ways, through light, through composition, foreground, midground, background, and how you are using light, contrast, texture, and all these things, mid-tone, shadows, highlights, all these things are designing the depth. And if the story is requiring depth, and if you can tell the story in a better way using, designing the depth, then you can do that. If the story is requiring, a particular close-up, only the close-up will do. Only the close-up is giving you a lot of emotional response, a lot of things you want regarding the acting. So you are going for that. The lensing you are doing, because if you use a telephoto lens, you will see that if you are going for telephoto lens, the background will be, having less depth. So you are doing it from a distance, and you are using telephoto lens. And if you use a 50 millimeter, if you use a wide angle, then it will have a different depth. If you use wide angle, it will have more depth. So how the background is playing with the foreground, how the subject and the background, that relationship is working. So all these things we will work on, but this frame is really important. Many people take it for granted, this frame, but this frame is really important when you are telling a story. A lot of things are happening. Sometimes many people won't even look at what is happening in the frame, but you as a director, you as a creator working with a team, a great team of collaborators, you are minutely choosing what to put here, where to keep the actors, how they are going to move. All these things are there. Then one thing, when you have a frame, the next frame, this next frame, from this frame to that frame, how you are going to do that. If it is coming from this direction, it will require something regarding editing, regarding shoot, regarding screen direction, regarding a lot of things, continuity, how you are creating that effect. Then all the rules are there, the old rules, how filmmaking was made. If it is happening from there, this is having a different meaning. So how we are using all these techniques. The person is moving from here, the person is moving from there. So what I say is, you can experiment a lot, you can think about all these things. Many people are not doing that, but you as a filmmaker can do that, so that people will think about all these things, they will study all these things again. So we can play with the frames a lot, editing, how we are putting the frames together and all these things. So these things are important. And this is the reason we have liked many films, and the more you study about it, the more you want to learn about it, how it was made, how it was shot, and what effect it had. So as a film student, as a curious person, as a cinephile, you can study all these things. But as a director, you are doing the practical things, so you can show a lot of path, you can play with things a lot, and people will get inspired from that. So this frame, how you are capturing this frame and how you are arranging these things are important. So tiny little things in both sessions, but the more you understand it, you can play with cinema a lot.